Let's check in with the body first. And let's just notice its capacity to be a sensing organism. So we can just notice what its capacity is to sense into its surroundings, into its environment. The first thing that we can notice is that we don't need the mind to do this. We don't need to think about how to do it. The body knows how to do that already. So we can just hear, notice whatever sounds may be arising where we are, and just receive the sound. Not necessary to interpret it or even name it or decide whether you like it or not. Just receive that information. Receive that input. Just receive that vibration as is. And same if you have your eyes open, the same with any visual input from the room. We don't have to name the objects that we see. That doesn't actually add to our experience of it. We can just notice the image. And again, we can notice any tendency that the mind may have to want to manage that experience, right? To wish it were different or remember how we wanted to change that, or whether we like it or whether we don't, or who gave it to us, or what memories it brings up. Just the sheer visual image of it. Any sensory image, any sensory input, sense of sitting, sense of breathing, sense of the temperature of the room, and sense of the clothing against your skin. You can also notice any internal, so-called internal feelings, a sense of maybe being full from dinner, or maybe a bit on the hungry side, or thirsty or not, or this joint hurts a bit, or I feel comfortable, or maybe I feel restless. We can just sense into the feeling rather than trying to name it, trying to categorize it. Just the feeling, just the sense of it, right? The mind wants to come in and tell us what we're experiencing, but we don't actually need the mind to do that. We can just directly experience whatever it is that we're experiencing. So we can, in the same way, we can notice that whatever thoughts may arise, they're just more furnishings in the room where we happen to be, more arisings, more images. In this case, an interior, verbalized, mental series of words. And we can allow that to be that particular kind of input, much like sound is different from sight, is different from taste, and the words running through our head is also a different experience. No more valid than any other experience, right? Maybe often less so, because it's at least one level abstracted from the reality of whatever it is that we're experiencing. So whenever the mind tries to interpret or name or evaluate or compare whatever sensation or experience or perception that we may be having, we can just notice that that's what it does when it doesn't have anything better to do. And we can allow it to do that, right? So there's no effort expended in trying to stop the mind doing what it's been programmed to do. It's been doing it for quite a few years, and we can just let it do that and notice the patterns, notice the programming, notice the conditioning, and just let that be. Just let it be, just like the sounds in the room or the visual input from the room. Just let it be. So we can notice that all of these perceptions are possible not only because of this body that has these particular capacities. Different animals and birds and insects have different capacities, see the world differently. So we're not seeing the world as a whole, but we're seeing it within the range of our sense organs' ability to perceive it. But what also, besides the body, what also makes this experience possible is just this innate, amazing, mysterious capacity to be aware of whatever sensations we're experiencing. So the significant thing here is not to try to change the content, not to try to decide whether we prefer this over that, not to decide whether we like this thought and not that one. It's really to notice that within which all of that sensory input, including thinking, arises. And we can notice the utterly unique capacity that we all have in equal measure already, as is, to notice that, just to simply notice it, to be alive to it, to exist, to be present for whatever's happening. And we can notice that awareness or that innate capacity to notice whatever it is that's happening is already quiet. Already is not only willing, but in a sense welcoming, without resistance, any of these sensations or perceptions. The mind may or may not like it, we all know that, but the awareness itself is present for whatever arises. So we can begin to distinguish what the mind, with its preferences and attachments and conditionings, we can see that mechanism, and we can also see that whole patterned kind of response happens within this much, much larger spaciousness, much, much larger capacity to receive whatever's experienced. Sure, as a finite body-mind, we like these things and more than those things, of course. Not actually a problem. But if there's a recognition that what I truly am is this much larger spaciousness, conscious, aware, alive, mysterious spaciousness, present for whatever experiences may be happening. when we rest there, when there's that sense of being at home there, then sure, we'll still prefer this over that, but either way, it's just the next experience. Some are easy, some are more difficult, sure. And we sort of all know that that's how life is. As long as we're not expecting it to be other than that, then it's just as it is. Some days are easier, some days are harder. But when we recognize that our true home is this immense spaciousness, there's a certain perspective, there's a certain willingness to experience whatever life happens to be serving up today.